In this series, I'm looking at Are You Haunted, which is a UK TV ghost show. I've already looked at Project Fear with my team. This is just something I want to do for my own pleasure. So this show is a bit of a breath of fresh air, I would say, because it's not like the YouTubers on at the moment or some of the more out there ghost shows. To be honest, it's much more relatable for what my team finds on an investigation. Now, I've had the pleasure of interviewing some of the team members and also met them in person on an investigation which we didn't really investigate under those circumstances. Maybe one day I'll get the pleasure of doing that properly. But for now, I want to introduce you to the team we're going to be looking at. We've got Sarah, who is the team leader, and the final say comes down to her. We have Phil, who is Sarah's husband, and you may have seen him on Most Haunted or Scream Team like 20 years ago. Now, Jane and Sarah used to do investigations way back in the day, like most other teams do now. I'm talking about the paid public events. So they've had all this experience with Ouija boards and all the equipment for a long time. And then Dale's another investigator who's been with the team for ages on this show, but has recently left because of work commitments. And then we've got Ben. Unfortunately, Ben is also not with us at the current time because he's at uni and stuff. But there's nothing to say we won't see them in the shows again. However, this is Series 4. It's over and done with, and Series 5 is due out, so that's what I'm looking forward to. It's all on YouTube. The link's in my description. But let's look at where they're going to go. So it's the Priory Theatre in Kenilworth. Full of energy and has lots of history. Now we have to note that this team does know how to use equipment and all about them, but chose to break away from the other shows using them. They want to just sit in the dark and find actual evidence that doesn't particularly need to be filtered into what's real and what isn't. I say they don't use equipment. Obviously they have cameras and mics, and they plot zooms around the place, and they have been known to try experiments with different things, but it's not the usual fare. And you know what, as of this year, our recording and locations are gonna be a little less app driven, because we just tried apps because we were bored. I'm not really impressed personally, and so I suppose we are following in their footsteps a bit, but we'll still use a few meters, so we're not really copying them. So the show starts with a client from the location talking about the history and maybe some sightings. Theatre performances, as far as names, started in 1932 until 1939, just before the war. Then in 1945, a chapel was converted into the theatre, but using the original stage equipment. Then you get an extension in 1947, and then seats were improved in 52, and it just goes on and on. It gets bigger and bigger, until 1976, when unfortunately a fire almost burnt the whole place down. And the theatre then continued to flourish and build up to now, 90 years on. We get this member of staff talking about curtains all being set at half height when they turn their backs for half an hour, which has them all scratching their heads because it's a lot of work done in no time at all. And also there's a time when some large ropes were heard to be thrown in the back set, and no one has any explanation for it. So, something of strong energy, doing cool things. Now in this series, Sarah has a little bit of a new tactic.
I'm going to nominate one of you guys to take complete charge of tonight's investigation.
Oh.
So this is a good idea. I like this. Everyone feels like they're equally invested in the team, and everyone's got different opinions. And I've nearly done this with my own team, influenced by this show. But unfortunately, I'm such a control freak, I haven't done it yet. But it is a good idea. A lot of the time, you only find evidence where you put your meters. If you didn't put your equipment in a certain place, you wouldn't catch the things that you catch. So it's very dependent on whether you get evidence of where you are at the right time and where your equipment is. So it's a bit of pot luck, but maybe someone's got a better idea of where evidence will be caught.
But I'm handing the reins over to you, Jane.
Oh.
So on this occasion, it's Jane. She's got all the experience, and she walks around, she assesses each room, decides where she wants cameras placing, where she wants Zoom put in, who's going to get a lone vigil, and it turns out she puts Dale on his own in the dressing room. So this allows Jane to sit at the CCTV bank manning the cameras, and Sarah and Phil to be put in another location as a duo. So they're physically covering everywhere, they've got eyes all over, and they've got 2 zooms in separate places. That's good coverage.
I feel really uneasy up here. I don't know why, as I say. I'm not sure what it is. There's just something with the atmosphere that I don't really like. So that is the door. Sorry, there was a little... So that is the door.
So Dale says he feels uneasy, and obviously he's on his own, he's in a place he doesn't know, he's in the dark effectively. I mean, that's fairly standard, that's fairly how it's going to be anyway. And then we get a creak, which you might think, well, that's nothing, that's just what buildings do. But understand also that the show isn't full of Sam and Colby garbage. It's a proper investigation where you have to take every little thing and think about it. So, the likelihood is that it was just a building cooling, but we don't know for a fact, so they include it in the evidence.
If there are any spirits here this evening at the Priory Theatre, up in the new dressing rooms, would you like to come and make yourself known to me?
Yeah, so Dale starts asking out. Now, I know this team doesn't use protection. I generally do, but I don't really think of it as protection. I think of it more as an invitation. Like we turn on, shine out some invitation light, and moths to a flame they come. Currently this year, we've decided to have a year without protection to see what the difference is, if any. Because as Phil said to me, the public has ghostly phenomena happen, and they don't use protection / invitation. They just have it happen and see all sorts. So what's the good of it? I agree with that.
In this particular area of what used to be a chapel, and the graveyard area, then please do come forward, come and join us.
It really is fishing, because you don't know what you're going to get, and it could be very slow and boring for a lot of it. No idea what that was, but it's worth logging, isn't it? When you hear it on the review at the end of the day, it could become apparent later on. It could, because something could be said that's like, oh yeah, we did hear that, or if you hear it later. So it's logged, cool. So there are noises, but is it cooling or expanding of items in the room? I know my house does it. How do you know that's not something about to happen? You don't. You just kind of like, okay, what's going to happen next? It's either going to come to nothing or it's going to come to more. In this occasion, it comes to nothing.
If you can see us sat here, perhaps you could walk towards us so that we can hear your footsteps. I thought that I heard footsteps earlier on this evening.
So Sarah asks for footsteps and says she heard them earlier on, which is the way. Quite often you're not recording, activity happens, and you just have to log it and say, that was cool, I hope it happens when we're recording. That's fair enough. Dale does hear footsteps and soon becomes aware that it's the team.
We've got a lot of footsteps, which I think must be Phil and Sarah.
Why did that open? Is
Yes,
that
it is.
there?
I told you someone was going to come through the door any moment.
Did you open the door?
No?
Did you hear it open a minute ago?
Yeah, I think it was the air. Must have been the air difference. Did you open a door?
No.
Really?
No, we were just about to go upstairs.
I thought that was you guys.
Why did that open?
So yeah, like Dale says, did you open another door to cause a vacuum effect? No, they didn't. And it's unlikely that the stairs would cause it to open floorboard-wise. I don't know how that would work. It seems to be one of those fire doors with a seal all around the edge, so I presume it's got also a shutter, which when they work loose, air can open them. It's kind of hard to call. It was neither of the team members, you can say that much. It'd be nice to know if you can walk past that door backwards and forwards and it doesn't always happen, because you think redoing that movement would make it happen again, I guess.
Just thought I saw something back of that stage bit.
Whereabouts?
You know where this middle square bit at the back of the stage?
Yeah.
On the section to the right of that?
Yeah.
Against the blue bit there.
What did you see?
It's just like a shift in brightness.
So Phil thinks he sees something, and it's difficult, isn't it? Because your eyes adjust in the dark, they start to strain to try and almost refocus like a camera lens. But, shift in brightness rather than a movement of shadow. But you're just ready to catch something, and you're always looking everywhere, and because everything's so static, everyone's still, that you do notice these changes.
So it kind of went dark and then light.
Yes? Is that you making that noise? I'm getting a few noises now.
Temperature's dropping in here now fast.
Are you with us right now? Can you hear me?
So thud's interesting, and little creaks and cracks. They don't seem to be moving around, so I don't think anyone else can be accounted to make that noise. You just don't know if it's a spirit or not. Sometimes you leave these recorders out. I mean, I have a different one. These are new to me, but I have a similar thing. And it sounds like the mics get rubbed sometimes, even though they're in there on their own. So that's what it sounded like to me, that maybe the equipment itself possibly was being interacted with. So ultimately, the session 1 ends and they all sort of change places.
Have you followed us around the building? Are you watching us? Tap on something so we know it's you.
Okay.
I was sat still.
Mm-hmm.
But you know this noise that my coat makes when I move?
Yeah.
I heard that noise behind me.
So is that swishing noise the same odd, weird noises that we've heard in 2 different parts of the building? Who's to say? But Jane's the best to say whether she heard it and where she heard it, and so she said it wasn't her coat. I believe her. But it's back at that door again, and when you do get that brush, because they are sealed with brushes, that as air goes through, but I trust Jane's judgment. And then we end up in a dressing room with some coat hangers swinging. See what you think.
No draft.
Is the radiator on?
No,
It's not on.
no.
Right, that shocked me then, because I thought it might be thermal airs. What is this? Well, it doesn't let any air out now.
No, there's nothing coming through. Like I say, I walked the full length and back and that didn't move. It's only when I walked back down here and was watching that one that I noticed that one's starting to move. That's really strange. So if I wobbled it, it would do it. But that wasn't wobbling it.
So obviously the first thing you think is, well, come on, it's probably our breeze, it's probably a room breeze, uneven floor, you've knocked it, but they're going through these things. They're not leaping to pretend that it's a ghost and reacting. They're like, it's probably nothing, it's probably just this, is it this, is it this? And I find that very trusting. I gain respect for them for that. For being like, look, I'd rather show everyone that it's not a ghost before we say to anything else.
It literally sounded like something going... Like
my coat?
Hang on. Like that.
Right.
Did you hear that?
Yeah. Something's creaking as well now.
Make that noise again if it was you, for somebody doing that noise.
I mean, what the hell was that? That was a voice or some utterance. How weird.
You heard that?
That was like movement. Did you hear it?
Yeah, it's what me and Phil got earlier. It's like
It was like a...
something going like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly that, yeah. It was like if somebody had got a long dress on
Yeah,
that was like dragging across the floor.
because I'd got something similar. We were sat down there. Phil says, what's wrong? I said, the noise that my coat makes.
Yeah.
I'd had that noise behind me and I hadn't moved. And that was like down the other side, but that's very similar. Oh, I've gone Ghosthunter. That's the first time that's happened, like properly. Again.
What the hell is that?
It's definitely coming from the old bar
Something's
area.
in here, isn't it?
So, footsteps were heard earlier. Booms above Phil and Dale. Swishing. We've caught this swishing sound, seems to describe the weird noises, the carpet, foot movement. Also the noise in this room behind Jane. A swish, maybe it is. A female walking around this place, watching them do their investigation. That weird zoom noise, which is almost an utterance. Female, I would have said. It's all starting to point towards female spirit.
Not much happened throughout the night for myself, but the rest of the evening just knocks and bangs.
It was a little bit quiet for me personally.
Nothing major tonight, so it's kind of eased us back into it very gently.
So as I admit, nothing major, little bits and bats, but that shows, like we try and do, that you're not fooling yourself. When nothing happens, nothing happens. So you just try and be genuine and open about what is paranormal and what isn't. And yeah, you just sit and wait. That's a lot of that. So I like their investigation style because, that's how I do it as well, pretty much. And they do stand out from the crowd, and I think they deserve more views. So yeah, fair play to them. And thanks particularly to Sarah for allowing me to make this video and series. But thanks to all the team for being so cool.